it seems like recently I've had a lot of people that I've talked to who have said, like we've heard some tonight, this is familiar. I had a situation where I was traumatized in the past, and this is feeling very similar. And how do I keep from being re-traumatized? And so I thought about it a lot this week. I've meditated, and what seemed to be coming up over and over was flexibility. And I thought this, graphic of a flexible building was really, really, really good. If you look at this skyscraper that has to support many, many people, and yet, it's this graphic is depicting it as being able to move pretty dramatically and at an angle in order to provide more safety, not less. So I looked up definitions of structural flexibility, and I thought it is so perfect for emotional flexibility, mental flexibility as well. So structural flexibility can be defined as the property of accommodating any changes by providing sufficient space. So just in and of itself there, if we just pause. So in order to be flexible, you need to embrace sufficient space around you, within yourself, as well as load carrying capacity, which you have to be also able to be strong enough to carry the burden, right? And allowing changes in one or more areas without the requirement to change the structure itself. So I thought when it comes to our mental health, our emotional health, even though this definition was designed for construction work, I modified it just very slightly to apply to our emotional mental health. That we need to be able to provide sufficient space for ourselves internally and externally. We need to be able to be strong enough to carry the burden. And we need to allow for changes in more than one area of our lives while still maintaining the structure of our lives. Because the structure of our lives are very, very, very important. It doesn't mean that you can't have space, strength, and the ability to change within that structure. So attributes of flexibility: stay present, tell yourself the truth. This is really, really, really important. You can't be flexible if you're lying to yourself or relying on distortions. So be explicit. Differentiate between stress, fear, self-doubt, and re-traumatization. Don't be too quick to jump into, oh, this is just like when I experienced a trauma, therefore I'm going to be re-traumatized. It's okay to be stressed. It's okay to be fearful. It's okay to even have self-doubt. That does not mean you're re-traumatized. Being traumatized is when too much is happening too soon and you're not able to manage the rate of speed with which you're being assaulted by too much. So fear, stress, and self-doubt does not mean it's too much. Identify real options available to you. Notice when you're talking in all or nothing language, or when you're resorting to rigidity rather than flexibility. Remain fluid and be prepared to move or pivot. So in the midst of highly stressful, fear-inducing, self-doubting situations that could be traumatic, remain fluid and be prepared to move or pivot. And then, of course, everyone who knows me, my favorite is ask for help. Don't try and do it alone. And then as you're making these changes, in the midst of these changes, celebrate your new patterns. You know, we so often don't pause long enough to acknowledge, let alone celebrate. So you have to, that's probably a mistake I made here. You need to acknowledge the new pattern first so that you can celebrate. So you want to celebrate your flexibility, the many options, your fluidity, the fact that you're not allowing yourself to be re-traumatized, that you're standing in the truth and present. That deserves to be celebrated, irregardless of the outcome. Cognitive flexibility, change your environment, really, really important. If you're going to stay stuck, if you just stay in the exact same place. So be willing to change your environment. Be willing to try something new. Don't be afraid to challenge your thoughts or self-talk. So if you are feeling depressed, if your self-talk is extremely negative, to ask yourself, is this really true? You know, is this, you know, a thinking flaw? Am I distorting and not being open with myself? Am I letting fear totally control? Avoid rigid routines and be aware of your need to control. Because if you're into rigid routines and needing to control or be OCD, then you're less likely to be cognitively flexible. Flex your mental muscle. And the way you do this is by doing things differently. And one of the suggestions that I had was for you to experiment with focus versus creativity. You know, when we are trying to strengthen a muscle, we do some repetitions, right? We try to really give that muscle a little opportunity to, you know, hyperextend and then flex. And so if you're going to increase your cognitive flexibility, experiment with really focusing on the problem, focusing on your options, focusing on where you want to go and what you want your outcome to be, and then switch and be creative. Allow yourself creative outlets, because when you you know, move between focusing and creativity, you're much more likely to develop a stronger mental muscle that is flexible. Stay curious, again, along with asking for help. That's something that's almost on every slide I ever create. And explore other points of view. You know, this is not a time to keep your own counsel. This is a time to explore other points of view, remain open, and engage in talking to others about their points of view, or read about other points of view, or listen to podcasts or books, audiobooks. Make relaxation a priority. That's really important if you're going to be flexible. I couldn't fit this all in a vertically on this slide, so I'll just read it from the side. Some of the ways to relax: meditation, music, socialization with really close friends, physical outlets and activity, nature, ding, ding, ding. Nature is hugely responsible for helping us to relax, because it takes us to our primal, you know, animal selves. And we all know that nature is really where it's at, where we're most safe. Prepare your favorite dish, you know, in terms of food, and develop a new skill. These are all ways to relax and sort of shift your focus from whatever the challenge is in front of you. And then finally, just a reminder, stay flexible, as this building that is graphically showing us what the potential is for an earthquake or strong winds, so that the construct of this building will keep it from breaking. It will bend and be flexible.